That's a way to start. Good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the North Shore Unitarians. My name's Rebecca, and I'm your host for this Christmas evening service. We welcome you all to this service of candlelight and connection on this very special night of the year. Here we are on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people in the home of the North Shore Unitarians, where our collective mission is to empower people to live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. We welcome all to our community, our very caring community, where we foster spiritual growth free of dogma, and we inspire action in the spirit and the service of life. We gather together to remind ourselves of the important work in this world, to love, to share, and to be kind to all. Gosh, it sounds so simple when you say it that way, doesn't it? A few announcements before we begin. Most important, there's a reception after the service, and we welcome all to join. Whether you're new here for the very first time or you've been here a long time, please join us. Light food and snacks, and stay as long and as late as your Christmas Eve festivities allow. There's a joke that we call it the after party. Second, a weird little tradition that we have here at the North Shore Unitarians. We generally don't clap when we appreciate something we've heard in the service. We do this funny little hand rubbing thing. It's actually quite lovely and gentle. It's visual, it's not loud, and it doesn't interrupt people if they're in a moment of emotion or reflection. Third, a safety announcement about candles. There'll come a time in the service where we're all going to light our candles, and there's a rule: a lit candle remains upright. When you go to light your candle from someone else, the unlit candle comes in at a beautiful angle and gets lit, and then becomes upright. There we go. Everyone got it? Upright candles. That way we can keep the North Shore Fire Department in their kitchen or in their beds tonight. Safer for everyone. And lastly, just a reminder to the regulars of the North Shore Unitarians that we have a beautiful New Year's brunch coming up this Sunday. There's no service, but there's a New Year's brunch. It's a potluck, and anyone would be welcome to join. Are there any other announcements this evening? Then let us begin. We will start our service with the lighting of our chalice, a chalice of light to face the world's shadows, a chalice of warmth to face the world's coldness, a chalice of courage to face the world's terrors, and a chalice of peace to face the world's tumult. We kindle this flame as a symbol of our gathering. May the light of understanding illuminate our darkness. May the warmth of sharing bring us peace. And may its glow fill our hearts, our spirits, and our lives. Tonight we gather to honor the culture and the magic of Christmas, its origin story from more than 2,000 years ago. And let's be clear, whether that's a story you believe as true, like true, or whether it's something you hold on to more like a dream, like a myth from a corner of our deep collective culture. Some might call that a soul story. Regardless of how you see the story has worth. It has for hundreds of years. You see, stories are how we understand this complicated world. Stories sanctify our lives. They give us meaning. They give meaning to our experiences. They teach us important life lessons. They help us know what is right and what is wrong when it all seems so complicated in this world. We also recognize that tomorrow is the Jewish celebration of Hanukkah. And Hanukkah, as you know, is the winter festival of lights. It comes from 139 BC, like long before the Nativity story. And it commemorates the story of the Jewish reclamation of the temple in Jerusalem, having won it back from the Greek armies. It's an 8-day celebration because when they went to light the candelabra, they only had enough consecrated oil to light it and make it last for 1 day. And miraculously, it lasted for 8. This year, the first day of Hanukkah coincides with Christmas Day. And this only happens several times each century. And that's because the Hebrew calendar each month has 29 and a half days, and that's different than the solar or Gregorian calendar. It feels so relevant in the world that this year these holidays coincide. It seems like we need to align more with others who may not think or believe as we think or believe, who may not see the world quite as we see the world. Hanukkah celebrates the triumph of light over darkness, spirituality over materiality. Those values sure seem to align with ours, but somehow it doesn't seem to be playing out in the world that way. So whatever your background, however you see this night as sacred, you are welcome here to the magic, the music, the candles, and the connection of this special evening. Please rise as you're able for the carol 245, Joy to the World.
Hark the Hairy Angels by Robert Fulgham. It was Sunday afternoon, some days before Christmas, with rain, with wind, and cold, winter gloom. Things to-do list was long and growing like an unresistant mold. Temper, short. Bioindex, negative. Horoscope reading suggests caution. The news headlines suggest dollars, death, and destruction as the day's litany. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. My moment of quiet was jarred by a pounding at the door. Now what? Deep sigh. Opening it, resigned to accept whatever bad news lies in wait, I am nonplussed. A rather small person in a cheap Santa Claus mask, carrying a large brown paper bag out thrust. Twick or tweet, Santa Mask shouts. What? Twick or tweet, Santa Mask hoots again. Tongue-tied, I stare at the apparition. The mask lifts, and it is a kid with a $10 grin, taking up most of his face. Wanna hear some caroling? He asks in sing-song English. I know him now. He belongs to a family recently settled into our neighborhood by the Quakers, refugees, I believe. He stopped by at Halloween with his sisters and brothers, and I filled their bags. He's maybe 8. At Halloween, he looked like a wise man with a bathrobe on and a dish towel around his head. Want to hear some caroling? I nod, envisaging an octet of kiddos hiding in the bushes, ready to join their leader in uplifted song. Sure, where's the choir? I'm it, says he, and then launched forth with an up-tempo chorus of jingle bells at full lung power. This was followed by an equally enthusiastic rendering of what I swear sounded like "Hark, the hairy angels sing," and finally a soft-voiced, reverential singing of Silent Night. Oops, sorry. Head back, eyes closed, from the bottom of his heart, he poured out the last strains of Sleep in Heavenly Peace into the gathering night. Wet-eyed, dumbstruck by his performance, I pulled a $5 bill out of my wallet and dropped that in the paper bag. In return, he produced half a candy cane from his pocket and passed it solemnly to me. Flashing the $10 grin, he turned and ran from the porch, shouted, "God bless you," and "Twick-o-tweet," and was gone. Who was that kid? A lone one-man choir delivering Christmas door to door. I confess that I'm usually a little confused about Christmas. It never has made a lot of sense to me. It's unreal. Ever since I got the truth about Santa Claus, I've been a closet cynic at heart. Singing about riding in a one-horse open sleigh is ludicrous. I've never seen one, much less ridden in one. Never roasted chestnuts on an open fire. Wandering wise men raise my suspicions, and any men I've ever met who spend their time hanging around with sheep are, well, a little strange. Never seen an angel either, and my experience with virgins is really limited. The appearance of a newborn king doesn't interest me. I just as soon settle from some other president. Babies and reindeer stink. I've been around them both, and I know. Singing about things I've never seen or done or wanted, dreaming of a white Christmas I've never known, Christmas isn't very real. And yet, I'm too old to believe in it, and too young to give up on it, too cynical to get into it, and too needy to stay out of it. Twick-o-tweet. After shutting the door came near hysteria, laughter and tears, and that funny feeling you get when you know that once again Christmas has come to you. Right down the chimney of my midwinter hovel, it comes in a misdirected but enthusiastic 8-year-old. Confused about the details, like me, but he is very clear about the spirit of the season. It's an excuse to let go and celebrate, to throw yourself into holiday with all you have, wherever you are. I'm it, says he. Where's Christmas? I ask myself. I'm it, comes the echo. I'm it. Head back, eyes closed, voice raised in whatever song I can muster the courage to sing. God, it is said, once sent a child upon a starry night, that the world might know hope and joy. I'm not sure that I quite believe that, or that I believe in all the baggage heaped upon that story during 2,000 years. But I am sure that I believe in this child, This one-man Christmas choir, shouting, "Twick-or-tweet," door to door. I don't know who or what sent him, but I know I am tricked through the whimsical mischief of fate into joining the choir that sings of joy and hope. Through a child, I have been treated to Christmas.
Stories embedded. Taken from Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 20. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was, that while they were there, the days were accomplished, that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Saviour, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly hosts praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward all beings." And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known to us." And they came with haste, and they found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in the manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning the child, and all they that heard it wondered at those things which they were told by the shepherds. But Mary, she kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them.
The poem that I'm about to read was written in the middle of the Second World War, but I think you'll agree that it could have easily been written yesterday. It's called Kid Stuff by Frank Horn. There are these wise guys who tell me that Christmas is kid stuff. Kid stuff. Maybe they've got something there. 2,000 years ago, 3 wise guys chased a star across a continent to bring frankincense and myrrh to a kid born in a manger. A kid with an idea in his head. And today, as bombs continue to crash on the other side of the world, the real wise guys know that we've got to go chasing stars all over again in the hope that we can get back some of that kid stuff born 2,000 years ago.
name is Francis Tolliver. I come from Liverpool. 2 years ago the war was waiting for me after school. To Belgium and to Flanders, to Germany to here, I fought for king and country I loved dear. 'Twas Christmas in the trenches where the frost so bitter hung. The frozen fields of France were still, no Christmas songs were sung. Our families back in England were toasting us that day. They're brave and glorious lads so far away. Well, I was sitting with me messmate on the cold and rocky ground, when across the lines of battle came a most peculiar sound. Says I, now listen up, me boys, each soldier strained to hear, as one young German voice sang out so clear. He's singing bloody well, you know, me partner says to me. Soon one by one each German voice they joined in harmony. The cannons rested silent and the gas clouds rolled no more, as Christmas brought us respite from the war. As soon as they were finished and a reverent pause was spent, God rest ye merry gentlemen, struck up some lads from Kent. The next they sung was Still and Ark, 'tis silent night, says I, and in two tongues one song filled up that sky. There's someone coming towards us now, the frontline sentry cried. All sights were fixed on one lone figure trudging from their side. His truce flag like a Christmas star shone on that plain so bright, as he bravely strolled unarmed into the night. Soon one by one on either side walked into no man's land. With neither gun nor bayonet we met there hand to hand. We shared some secret brandy and we wished each other well, and in a flare-lit soccer game we gave them hell. We traded chocolate, cigarettes and photographs from home, these sons and fathers far away from families of their own. Young Sanders played his squeezebox and they had a violin, this curious and unlikely band of men. Soon daylight stole upon us and France was France once more. With sad farewells we each began to settle back to war. But the question haunted every heart that lived that wondrous night, whose family have I fixed within my sight? 'Twas Christmas in the trenches where the frost so bitter hung. The frozen fields of France were warmed as Christmas songs were sung. And the walls they built between us to exact the work of war had been crumbled and are gone forevermore. Oh, my name is Francis Tolliver, in Liverpool I dwell. Each Christmas come since World War I, I've learnt its lessons well, that those who call the shots won't be among the dead and lame, and on each end of the rifle we're the same.
Thank you, Jill. That was beautiful. The story of Christmas in the Trenches is true, although the song sung by Jill, done by John McCutcheon, is a fictionalized account. It's all referring to the same phenomenon in Christmas 1914, the first year of World War I. There were unofficial ceasefires all along the Western Front. It's estimated that 100,000 troops from all different countries were involved in those informal cessations of battle. Over the years, it's become known as the Christmas Truce. In German, it's called Weihnachtsfrieden. In French, le Trêve de Noël. And in Dutch Kerstbestand. The Germans placed candles on their trenches, on their Christmas trees, and then they sang Christmas carols. The British responded with Christmas carols of their own. In some areas, men from both sides ventured into no man's land on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to mingle, exchange food, cigarette, and souvenirs. There were joint burial ceremonies of recovered bodies and exchanges of prisoners. Those truces were not reported for a week, eventually being publicized to the masses when an unofficial press embargo was broken by the New York Times on December 31st. The British papers quickly followed, printing numerous first-hand accounts from the soldiers in the field as received home by families in letters. The following year, 1915, a few units arranged ceasefires, but the truces were not nearly as widespread as 1914. This was, of course, in part due to strongly worded orders from commanders prohibiting truces, but also the war had already gone on too long. It had become increasingly bitter. Soldiers were not so amenable to truce. It's never happened like that again. There had been, just before Christmas that year, several official peace initiatives. Pope Benedict XV, on December 7th, 1914, he had begged for an official truce between the warring governments. He asked, "May the guns fall silent, at least upon the night the angels sang." And there was an open Christmas letter for peace, publicly addressed to the women of Germany and Austria, signed by a group of British suffragettes. Neither of those requests were accepted. And so, as it is sometimes, it came down to the people on the ground just doing what seemed right. And that Christmas in 1914, the people in the trenches did what was right. Wouldn't it be so wonderful if we could wake up tomorrow morning to a story like that coming from the Middle East or from Ukraine? Christmas is a time when we speak of peace, but the reality is that there aren't many places in the world that have peace. It is not so for people in Ukraine, Gaza, Syria, and many other places. Without any political commentary on the rights or wrongs or the sides, that wars go on at the expense of everyday human lives is just wrong. So let us pause just for a minute and let us imagine that Christmas really could hold peace for the world. And let's send our thoughts or prayers tonight for those who have more fear than cheer this year, and for those who have little joyful to sing about. 1 minute of quiet reflection. Thank you.
Do you come to
for the month of December is the Lookout Housing and Health Society. Lookout Housing provides non-judgmental, non-sectarian services to adults who cope with a wide variety of challenges. It prides itself on the positive flow of tenants through the housing continuum, from outreach to emergency shelter to transitional housing to supportive housing when available, and ultimately to market housing when achievable. On the North Shore alone, there are 45 shelter beds and 25 supportive housing units. Please give as generously as you're able. You're welcome to use an envelope as found in the seats if you'd like to write your name and receive a tax receipt. And as you see on the screen, you're also able to give by e-transfer or credit card. Thanks for your generosity. Well, sure, on this shining night, I have a question for all of us this evening. What is your story of Christmas? If we ask one another that question, we would likely get very different answers. Sorry. There are the stories we were taught about Christmas when we were little. And then as we grew into adults, we have managed to shape our own personal story, our understanding of Christmas. It's worth examining those for a moment. I mean, go back. What was your best childhood memory of Christmas? What's the prevailing image or feeling you have from those Christmases that lives with you? How did that feeling of Christmas change in your adult years? And more recently, maybe change of job, of place, your children have grown. Maybe now grandchildren feel the space of this season with precious joy, innocent joy. Or maybe you've had quiet Christmases without children. What Christmas really means to each of us, beyond the list of gift purchases and the days of meal preparation and visitors, what's the meaning of this all, this magic night of Christmas Eve and the full day that follows? If we ask each other this question, well, first, the immediate response is something like, well, there was this one Christmas when this happened. We all have our collective Christmas tales or adventure. Our family has one of those. The smoke alarm went off at 2 a.m. on December 25th one year. It was the first Christmas in our house in North Vancouver. We had 2 gas fireplaces that we used intermittently. We would turn them on, and when we were warm, we would turn them off. When the smoke alarm went off in the middle of the night, my first thought, honestly, was that it was one of our teens up late making toast that had set off the smoke alarm. The kitchen smoke detector was indeed overly sensitive, and it was located far too close to the toaster. The smoke alarm going off was a frequent event in our kitchen. But that night, as I dashed out of bed, I quickly realized that what I was smelling was definitely more than toaster smoke, and the house was pitch black. There were no teens awake. The smoke became stronger as I reached our back living room, and then I saw it. The 4 stockings lined up against the fireplace, and the gas fire was now alight, though it had certainly been out a few hours earlier when the stockings, now full of gifts, had been placed there. And as I entered the room, now filling with smoke, I could see the tops of the stockings all smoldering, and then one caught light in front of my eyes, and I managed to whisk them all off the ledge, the hearth, just before anything else caught fire. We opened the windows, we hugged our kids, and we gave thanks for effective smoke alarm systems. And that Christmas morning, a little more weary than usual, we gathered by the tree and we unwrapped gifts with the smell of smoke still heavy in the air, all day in fact. It was just a very tangible reminder of how lucky we had been. It turned out there was a little thermostat inside that fireplace, and in the middle of the night, when it was cold, the fire would automatically turn on. We figured in retrospect it had been doing that all December, but we'd never been awake to witness it before. We disconnected that function shortly thereafter. So there are legend-type stories in all of our families, things that happened at Christmas. And then we have our very own personal experiences of Christmas. And some of us have stories that are so terrible and painful, we have buried them so deep. The Christmas season at some point in our life has left us so harmed that we can never see it as a time of cheer or joy. And if that is true for you, I'm very sorry. Others of us have been so fortunate that we've had stories of Christmas full of mirth. And we bring those stories out to tell and retell each and every year. And if that's you, well, I'm so glad for your true joy, because we need more of that in the world. And then there are some of us who have just chosen to relinquish our hurt, truly letting it go into the days of yore. We've consciously and intentionally chosen just to see and share joy. And if that's you, well, I thank you, because we must all aspire to that kind of living. And all of that, it just is, and it's okay. But what's your current story of Christmas? I mean, what does the holiday mean to each of us? And I suspect that many of you have some sort of thread of religion in the tapestry of stories of your past Christmases. Maybe that's been part of the harm. Or maybe it's been a positive part of reclaiming the deep meaning of Christmas. I've shared before that I grew up in the United Church, and for me, the feelings and experiences of the Christmas services and the nativity story were a formative part of who I was, for sure. But as I grew into adulthood, like many of us, I rejected so much of that. But then I spent this decade or more as a young adult trying to figure out what I was left with, like particularly at times of the year, like Christmas. If Christianity did not define my experience of Christmas, then how do I put context around this celebration? Because I knew the secularization of the holiday just felt empty and hollow. I knew what I had felt in my younger years. I felt it just now in that song, Sure on This Shining Night. I'm sure many of you felt it too. So how do I put that into context if cognitively now I've rejected the stories I've grown up with? It took me some time to realize that I didn't leave the church of my upbringing because I didn't believe the stories, or more importantly, the meaning of the stories. I left the church because I believed in the meaning of the story so much, and I couldn't stomach being part of an institution that says it is about the meaning of the stories, but then doesn't behave that way. And we still see that every day. Religion can provide a very useful cover and powerful motivator for bad intention. That religion can be so markedly different in the hands of the power-hungry as opposed to the altruistic and virtuous, well, that says much more about humans and human psychology than it does about religion. The whole purpose of religion is to facilitate love and compassion and patience and tolerance, humility and forgiveness. And yet, as we know, for thousands of years, violence has been committed and justified in the name of religion, in the name of one version of the story. So many atrocities committed against people of one religion in defense of another religion. And underlying that is the very wrong idea of many centuries that there are some lives that matter less than other lives. And that is not consistent with the UU principle of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And it's not consistent with the story of Christmas. I mean, regardless of how deeply or not you engage with the story, the birth of Jesus changed the world a lot. Like, for starters, the whole world system of dates changed because of his life to the Gregorian calendar, 139 BC, before Christ. That's wild. And the whole new religion started. This is not a sales job in Christianity, believe me, because like all things in life, there are some bad apples in that basket and some warped theological practices that have arisen. But the stories, the parables of his life radically changed the cultural norms of the time. Like, Jesus respected women. He honored children. He helped the ill, the lepers, the injured. Remember the story of the blind man? He hung out with all sorts of social and economic outcasts, tax collectors and sinners, shepherds and fishermen. The roughest and lowest people on the social ladder of that era were some of his closest friends and followers. That was a radically different approach to society. There is something pivotal in the story that speaks to us. As I see it, it's all about an embodiment of love that is beyond words, a way of honoring the dignity of every person we encounter. That is a spiritual or religious truth that stands for all of us, especially us Unitarian Universalists. We must all be infinitely and tenderly cherished. We all belong to one another. We're so deeply connected to one another, and we are responsible to and for one another. Palestinians, Jews, Catholics, Protestants, Muslim, Hindus, atheists, mystics, humanists. We all belong to one another. Sharon Bruce, she's a rabbi, and she will stand in her synagogue tomorrow night, not recounting the nativity story or anything about Jesus, but instead the Hanukkah story from the Talmud and the 8 days of oil. And she reminds us that we dream the same dream, all of us, just motivated by different core stories. Our words, our thoughts, our prayers may be different, but the dreams are the same. We need to be partners in building that world together. People of faith are on a path towards deeper spiritual connection, and we can only achieve that if we acknowledge the humanity of one another and we lift each other up. in the hope that we can collectively build a different world. Any and all faith should be a unifier and not a divider. Our personal contextualization of the Christmas day, this Christmas Eve, this whole event, it's important to reflect upon. And like many of you, as our understanding of Christmas changes and deepens, we can hold on to the deeper meaning of many of the stories and get shaped by stories from elsewhere too. Somewhere along the way, religion morphs into spirituality, the edges soften with a reliance more on stories than rules, with more of a sense than any hard dogma. We can be comfortable with it all, with the vagueness of the nativity story, vague in our minds, but meaning something deep in our hearts. And that approach is quite effective, especially now as the accuracy of the historical accuracy of the details of Jesus' life and the birth has become increasingly challenged in recent years. But if we're taking it as a story of moral compass or a soul story, then the details don't matter so much. So let us all, at some point over this holiday, examine the role that religion or spirituality plays or has played in our story of Christmas. Maybe try to shed those elements that don't serve us well or don't serve the world well. And let's find a new version of the story to tell, one that has deep meaning for us. And that strategy, well, it allows you to have a bit of fun thinking about the characters in your story of Christmas. Nadia Boltz-Weber, she's a Lutheran pastor, and she tells a story about a church she attended where they did a living nativity. So one Sunday afternoon every December, the locals could drive by a little live nativity scene that they set up outside. They'd have live farm animals, and they'd have people dressed up in the various parts of the nativity scene. And Nadia, she was inside helping people get dressed for their different shifts. And because it was cold outside, people only lasted like 15 or 20 minutes before they came inside to switch out. This little boy comes in, and Nadia says, "Hey, Peter, how'd you like being a shepherd in the nativity?" And he looked at her and he said, "Well, it was pretty good, but I think next year I want to be a pirate." Like a pirate. I think that's a lesser known character in the nativity story. But sure. Nadia goes on to say, I mean, really, is that any weirder than presuming there really was a drummer boy? As an aside, I've given birth to 2 children in a much more comfortable environment than a barn, and I can say with certainty that the last thing I would have ever wanted as part of my labor and delivery experience was a child playing a drum. Even if he was playing his best for me. Brian Andreas, he tells a story about his cousin Clara. She had the part of one of the 3 wise men in the church pageant, and when it came time for her to speak, she said, "We're here bearing gold, frankincense, and myrrh, heavy on the frankincense because of the camel smell." After that, apparently his uncle called it the story of the 2 wise men and that other guy. That other guy. A pirate, a drummer boy, a wisecracking magi. Maybe all of our Christmas stories have at least one other guy. I mean, if we're getting comfortable with adapting the story to fit a bigger meaning, then it opens up all kinds of possibilities, like Santa Claus, like the Grinch. We're not the first ones to adopt this story. Have at her. Add all the people you want to the nativity story. Add those little characters into your little creche, your little nativity scene. Apparently, there's a playful discussion in theological circles asking, what's the craziest thing you've ever noticed in a creche in a nativity scene? People say they've seen Santa kneeling beside Jesus. Someone said they once saw a priest in a robe and a cross around his neck. Cross around his neck beside baby Jesus. What? Time travel, that's what that was. Now that's a whole modern approach to the nativity story. But in fact, the nativity story already has an unusual cast of characters in addition to the drummer boy. You know them. There's Joseph and Mary. There's the shepherds who were tending their sheep, the angel who appeared to them, the magi from the east who saw the stars and came, and the camels, King Herod, the corrupt leader who hears of Jesus' birth and issues a proclamation to kill all newborns. Jesus narrowly escaped because his family returned by a different route through Egypt. That's a rather wild assortment of characters, like a yummy little Christmas chocolate box, you know? And then there's Jesus himself, a baby. There's a provocative little poem written by Lawrence Lee. He's a Christian leader, and it goes like this: Lord, we came to worship the Savior you sent us, and we marvel at the manner of sending. In the midst of political upheaval, we hoped for a king. In the midst of wars and rumors of wars, we hoped for a general. In the midst of religious tumult and controversy, we hoped for a high priest. But you sent us a baby. Interesting choice, God. I don't know if we should call that a prayerful poem or a poetic prayer. Whatever we call it, the words make us examine the sending of a baby in the story. A story about a leader who so impacted the world, changed the world, invented a world religion, changed the way we interacted with others. And it starts with a baby. Of course, there's some obvious symbolism there. A baby is not considered threatening, meaning there really was nothing to fear in his arrival into the world. No one's afraid of a baby. Babies are innocent, dependent, easily hurt. A child sees things with no innate prejudice or skepticism. Children are born with a predisposition towards kindness. So yes, a child, some of it may be obvious. But maybe it's more than that. Well, we were all children once, naked, innocent. So the character, a baby, that connects to the child that's inside each one of us. The Dalai Lama said, we're all born the same as human beings, different faith, different race, different language, even different culture. But those are secondary. When we come from our mother's womb, no difference of religion, no difference of nationality, no difference of culture. That's fundamental. Even deeper, Jesus at birth is an outcast. He's homeless. He's a refugee. That means there was no immediate claim to wealth or power, unlike most of the world leaders that we have known. Maybe it goes even deeper than that. When I think about many current world leaders and this propensity to fake news, which, by the way, is just a convenient word for lying, the people in power in this world who endorse hate and fear and violence and extremism, well, it's clear what happens. That behavior evokes negative behavior in the rest of us. Frustration, anger, fear, more hatred, and in some cases, more violence, like counter-violence. So maybe the nativity story centered on a baby is just simple and clear. To really help the world, to change the world, to carve a new path forwards for humanity, we just need to approach the world with gentleness and tenderness and humility and simplicity. As the world gets harder, we must soften. The more ruthless our culture and our politics gets, the more we must respond with vulnerability, empathy, curiosity, compassion. In Bethlehem, a manger waits, long ago and so today, where hatred-weary people pray that love will come there. Love that sees with mercy's eyes, love that holds its arms open wide, love that opens fists of hate, love that shows a kindly face to all, to friends and family, to enemies and strangers. So maybe that's the audacious dream born in all of us through the story of Christmas Eve. It's a story that, you can add whatever characters you want to make it feel right. Do what you must to make it have meaning in this messy, complicated world. But the original story already has an eclectic cast of characters, and the plot comes to one simple, basic conclusion. The world is a frightening, dangerous place. Our lives are complicated. The wildest people show up. They make it even more crazy and complex. And the only way through is love. Love's the only lesson left to learn. 2,000 years of telling the story on this oh holy night, and the world hasn't quite got it yet. Tenderness, gentleness, just what we feel when we see a newborn baby. That's the only way forwards. Love is what we must take out into the world tonight and always. Amen. Amin. Shalom. Blessed be. Thank you, Deanna. So beautiful. In my dream this year, the angel said, she shrugged and she said, if we fail this time, it'll be a failure of imagination. And then she reminded me that the world sits gently in the palm of my hand. This Christmas, may we re-examine the extraordinary story of the season with all its unexpected characters, pirates, drummer boys, wisecracking magi, and beautiful babies. Can we cherish all of those who cross our path? May we embrace them with kindness, compassion, and hope, because we're all, in fact, each other's companions on this crazy, broken journey called life, and we're singing our way home together. Every act, every word, every deed, every person, it's so interconnected. The ripple effects are far and wide, invisible. May the story of the birth of an innocent little baby the spirit and the heart of this popular Christmas story remind us about the power of extraordinary love. As the world gets harder, we must soften. We must lead and follow with vulnerability, tenderness, empathy, compassion, and connection, with more love and more grace than we've ever done before.
Wishing you all a most beautiful Christmas. Kwanzaa, solstice, Hanukkah, Yule, and all the rest. Blessed be. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.